Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the TFC Season 3, Episode 22. And this one is titled BS10 Review, TLCs, and Upcoming Changes. Got a couple of folks here with me tonight. First off, welcome, George.
Evening, everybody.
Hey, and we've got Renato.
Hello.
And I think we have Cuttlefish. You may just be right back. Lots to go over today, so let's just go ahead and dive right in. Slide pack contact tonight. We've got Bounty 10 review. We've got Rampage reports. We've got weekly update, and then we've got some bug fixes and balance changes. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Bounty 10. I did not participate. I was actually on vacation on the top of a little hill with no internet. Drove me nuts. But we had some changes this time around, and I did just want to touch on these before we went through the review. First off, we had where this time around you could actually secure your bounty on demand. George, did you want to talk through this? I know you had some input with this.
So So in this bounty for each day you could choose. You had the 10,000 unsecured bounty that if you reached 10,000, it would secure automatically. And then each day you had daily charges where you could bank any of your unsecured to make it secured, which was an interesting addition. I think part of it was added in because a lot of players were missing days of bounty because they couldn't just be on every single day. So each day you had a different amount of daily charges. The first day you had 5, the next day you had 4. Day 3 you had 4, and then day 4 you had 3. You had all like the full 24 hours to use each one of them. And actually, what's this note? I didn't actually see this one, Robin. You got the 5 daily charges in the first day. You log on. Oh, okay, I see. I didn't actually know that. That's neat. So if you missed day 1, you actually got 5 daily charges. Cool. And then if you reach 10,000 at any point, you would secure and it wouldn't use your daily charge. So you could actually conceivably finish your bounty on day 1 if you were really glutton for punishment, I guess.
Yep.
So it was an interesting change. There was some good and some bad with it, and we're going to cover that in some other slides. And I think it also depended on your perspective on whether some of that was good or bad too. So.
Yep. Okay. Prior to the other changes that occurred with this one is, in addition to being able to bank whenever you felt like it, as long as you had not used all of your checkpoints, bounty players were no longer restricted to hitting someone with more unsecured bounty in order to steal from them. So in the past, you could only get bounty. So if I went over there and attempted to hit George's base and he was worth 10K in bounty, I could take from him, but if he was not worth anything to me or had more than me, then I couldn't get any. And that changed with this. So now you could essentially steal from anybody who had any unsecured bounty. They also brought the bounty drip back to 800 every 6 hours. If you remember last time, they reduced that. And they also reduced I think it was 10% increase in the map targets that we had last time. So they added the drip back to where it was, but they took away that increase in the payouts on the map targets.
Yeah, and that was... I'm still of two minds about that first one. I'm not sure. I guess I'm going to have to play bounty to see whether or not I like that or not.
Yeah. And then we had some late changes that occurred right before bounty started. They made the decision to remove the Javelin 2 turret from the prize list, and they kept the capacity for the Halo Missile 2 at 2. Originally, I think it was it going to be 4 that you were allowed to have?
Yeah, you could have up to a max of 4 of the Halo 2s and then the 2 new jabs.
Yeah, so they kept the Halo cap at 2 and removed the new Javelin 2. And this was based on, from Kix, hearing the community feedback that combat power strongly favors base defense at the moment. In response to this feedback and to ensure they do not continue to tip the scales, they've removed both of those from the prize list.
Yeah, I actually want to say something on this because I have seen a lot of people say, hey, base hitting's not dead. People still walk my base, this and that. And the catch is this is the people that had noticed this are either the ones that play with the numbers a whole lot or are at the top end of the game. And while yes, they're the ones that started complaining, they're the ones that saw the issue first. This would eventually trickle down into the rest of the game if it weren't addressed. Because if you have, like, because I had someone that was using the example of the tier 6 hulls, like they still have tier 6 retributions coming in and leveling them and this and that, or they're using them to level bases. And I said, look, if they have just one of the new turrets with the right fire supports around it, you're not going to be able to use that hull at all because of the way things are working. I mean, this whole thing is just a mess. And I don't know that people quite realize that that actually is something that would eventually trickle down into the rest of the game. So we might have gotten to a point where, you know, if they hadn't addressed the PvP issue and if they had left this stuff in, it was conceivable that you were going to hit bases that, I mean, you weren't going to be able to hit any bases, period, no matter what level you were, because if you were in the mid or low levels, you weren't going to be able to hit those bases either. The first raid that would come up to next, they're going to have some of these things in there, and it's going to negate a lot of the stuff that these people are saying are walking their bases. Now, are the tier 7 hulls going to still walk you? Probably, unless you get all the stuff, and that's a whole nother balance issue as well. But for right now, the whole turrets being removed and stuff was because of that, the way that they're stacking and the math that's behind it.
So what I'm hearing from you is that this was actually a smart move.
I agree with this move just because I didn't want to see the issue exacerbated any more than it already is.
To reinforce George's point, as a PvE-sided player, even I've noticed that my players are now being able to bounce, you know, the very top end of fleets. So even us PvE players have noticed this imbalance in the PvP.
Okay. All right. So that was the first late change. And then the second late change was they removed the guard fleets from the replica bases. Since guard fleets had been problematic, they removed them to help improve the experience of the attackers. So they pulled all of these out as well.
I like this one. I mean, a lot of time, it's either they had to do this or they had to make it where it acted like a regular base, wherein if you destroyed the base and the guard fleet was there, you still won, and that wasn't happening. So
yes, and I was trying to figure out when I saw this on the road, well, why did they do this? And then it dawned on me that you've got 5 almost indestructible ships there that you have to come back and clean up later. So was happy to see this. Okay, so those were kind of the changes both announced originally and announced right before the event. So let's talk about some of the feedback. Received this from multiple players and looked at what people were saying on the pages when I got back. First off, the people were, from I guess overwhelmingly those that did participate, was that they were happy that they could bank as needed and you kind of were not tied to your PC all weekend. I think that was pretty much universal across the board, no?
yeah, I think a lot of people like the idea that they could bank when they needed, and again, it also mitigated the whole I got to be at the computer every day at X amount of time and this and that. I think it helped a lot to alleviate that.
Yeah. And then because of that and the 10K checkpoints, there was no massive 57 last a day checkpoint, which I know I have suffered from in the past, where you go out there and hit targets and you know, you work your bubble and then some goober comes along and takes 19K of it. So that's now gone. So there's that high risk reward is no longer there. There's no huge checkpoint, and I would say that there were a lot of people. I don't know how to word this. There were people that were locked into how many points they could get because they were unable to defend, I guess. So if you got all of your checkpoints and the last one that you had was the 57K one, if you weren't able to defend against attackers, or you had, like I did, there were, I swear, 7 or 8 people lined up outside my base waiting for my bubble to drop, then there was no point in going for that last checkpoint.
Yeah, I mean the only catch that I have is that I wish it wasn't 100% bank. That's the only part of that, the only aspect that I dislike for a myriad number of reasons.
Yeah. And then lower levels were actually able to get about 17K just by playing smart with bounty drips and gunboat defense hits. If you logged in right before you were due to get a drip, you could go out there and get your gunboat hits. You could have somebody prep a couple of the NPC bases for you. So this time around, a lot of people were actually able to get a lot of points, even if they were mid-level. And I think, Ren, you were the one that figured that out?
What, the 17K?
Yeah.
Yeah, just did some math and, like 800 per drop. You got 4 drops a day. That's 3,200 points, 4 days. That already gets you over 13K. And then if you have a friendly tap your base with a gunboat 5 times a day, you get another 1,000 a day. So it's like 17 point something. Literally, without having to hit any replica, without, I'm going to say without even playing. You just show up for a few minutes. And if you do it right, you wait for 1 drop to be almost expired. You log in, you get the 2 drops within 10 minutes. So there's no risk of you sitting there with 800 exposed bounty, right? And with 3-4 banks a day, right, that we have, you can only be exposed for 10-15 minutes per day. So very, very low risk, very, very low effort. And with that kind of points, you could get the onslaught, you could get some nice specials, you could get a halo, like if you wanted a turret to complete your exact choose, like some pretty cool stuff with 17K that you could get.
Now, see, the only catch there is, and you actually said it really well, is that there was no risk. And the one concern I have is if it's going to be like this, is it going to inflate what we need on the other end for points? That's my only concern.
They would be
there.
dumb if they did it, and I'm not putting past Kixai. I mean, they don't think the same way we think. My thinking is there are so many players who don't do PvP, right? And having an easy way for, because again, it's not like, hey, here's 17K, a gift. It's
right.
Like you got to be smart. You got to show up 2, 3, 4 times a day. And you got to be smart when you do that, and so you don't stay exposed. And if you miss one and you do it the wrong time, you get the grant, and now you're exposed. Then either you waste one of those charges there to bank, or now you're going to be exposed, and other players are going to hit you and get bounced. But I think it's okay to reward smart playing.
And I like the idea that it gives lower to mid levels the opportunity to get some of that catch up as well.
Yeah, if they are smart about it, right? That's the thing. It's not like you got, again, I still think of Battle Pirates as a strategy game and a tactics game, and that's it. That's what it is. I mean, you play the right tactics here and you can score 17K for near zero effort, near zero risk.
Yep. And that was one of the things that I went over with one of my guys is, yes, they put this stuff in the raid, but in the raid, you're trying to focus on getting the newest, bestest thing that's out there or completing the newest, bestest thing. You shouldn't be spending points on this kind of stuff if you're still working on your FM and still working on your raid fleet. So this does give them the opportunity to get things they might not normally get.
And the other thing is, like, literally, if you think about it, this is the best way in the entire game of getting something. Think about it. You show up for a raid, you gotta grind or coin or blitz or targets to get points. You don't get points for showing up, for logging in. FM, you don't get points for logging in. Literally in Bounty, you're getting some points for logging in and having a friend with a gunboat. It doesn't get any easier than that. This is the best way of earning blueprints in the game right now. It's not going to get you the top prizes, but it gets you something, right? That's pretty cool.
Yep, that's a really good point. Okay, so these were some of the positive things. Let's take a look at some of the more or less positive things. Players could bank while under attack. You could use a Doorbell Fleet to let you know you were under attack, so that you could bank if necessary. This is kind of one of those things that's positive and negative. It's positive for he who's being attacked, and would expect normally negative for he who was doing the attacking. But I understand there was an issue where even if the player got attacked, I guess both were getting the bounty.
Yeah.
And maybe that's intentional. I don't know if that's an exploit or a glitch. Maybe it's intentional.
I don't know, but I'm not laying odds on it being there next time around.
This one could go on either slide. I mean, the players that, especially the ones that were really averse to being hit, and you know, they really liked the fact that they could bank while they were under attack. The players hitting, on the other hand, hated it, and you know, I'm kind of.
But they were not losing it, right?
Not this time.
That's why I'm saying if it's by design.
Yeah,
and we don't know if it's by design.
I'm presuming
win. Because remember, this whole thing. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm presuming it wasn't by design, because what they had said in the forums was that they were going to be able to bank all of it, and that was it. You just couldn't hit, because the mods were talking about it in one of the posts in the forums. And I mean, if they keep it that way, that might be a good solution to it. But the bad thing is, you know, people are just going to start throwing gunboats on the outside. I don't know. It's a PvE, you know, solution to a PvP issue, I guess. So I don't even think it's an issue. I mean, it's supposed to be PvP, and just banking like that and not allowing someone. Now, if they leave it where you can take, both parties get to take the stuff, I mean, that's one thing. But if they change that to where you can bank and you can't get anything if they bank in the middle of a hit, that's going to be a problem.
I agree. It shouldn't. The attacker, once you see, okay, this base has that much and I'm hitting it, you shouldn't, you know, just lose everything mid-hit. That's why this may be by design. And remember, that was implemented in the early bounties when we were all having issues with seeing something in the locator that player X was worth that much bounty, and then when you hit because they reached the checkpoint or whatever mid-hit, you'd lose everything. So that was a fix, because literally a player before with the fixed checkpoints could hit a checkpoint and bank.
That was still happening. That was still happening last. But that was still happening last bounty.
Again, but they made it so what you see that the player is worth, and once you attack, you get that much. That was their intention. They fixed that 4 bounties ago or something like that.
Yeah, I think the original issue was it would show that, you know, that Ren was worth 600 bounty, and I'd hit Ren and I wouldn't get any bounty. And
right.
So yeah, that was corrected, but they did put the caveat in that between the time that I sent my fleet from my base to Ren's base, if he hit a checkpoint, you know, then that may not show correctly. But
yeah, no, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that even up to last bounty, I was hitting, like, I've hit plenty of people where they would get to a checkpoint while I was hitting them, and I got nothing when I got out. I mean, that was still going on up until last bounty.
Yeah, so we don't know. I mean, you know, again, I would like to hear from Kickside next bounty whether the same mechanic's going to be there by design, or whether there was a glitch, exploit, whatever you want to call it, that was quote unquote solved, and now every hitter is at risk of hitting a base for nothing, which I don't think is right.
And you know, the other catches too, though, is with the proliferation of the tier 7 stuff and the turrets. I mean, we're going to start getting back to the point where you have to prep a base as well. So, you know, if you want to get into some of the harder bases, it's going to be more than one hit. And I don't know, like this whole thing just kind of irks me a little bit from a PvP aspect. So
what about if it's left that way, but the attacker, if you lose bounty?
Well, that's just medals then. I mean, we can go back to the medal system.
Yeah, I don't think bounty was ever designed so the attacker loses bounty. I know the defender gains bounty if the attacker fails, but the attacker doesn't lose, because otherwise you're kind of killing PvP again. If you're going to be punished for a bad attack, because the attacker in theory, in a balanced state of the game, the attacker has the cards stacked against them. All you have is 5 ships and a rocket or 2. You know, like the other guy has 24 turrets, 2 portals, 5 ships, a layout. You know, so you can't really punish the attacker for trying.
Okay. The second line here, maximum amount of bounty that could be taken was, I guess, 4,999 because of the auto 10K bank. So there were no, look at what I did, screenshots being posted where people were taking, 10, 15,000 in bounty from people, which of course also was tied to that huge last day checkpoint. So what are your thoughts on this? Should this be increased, or do you think it will hurt
the max amount of bounty?
Yeah.
I mean, the only downside is that you don't get those really big amounts that are really fun to try and whack. I mean, there's a couple times that I mean, I've been whacked for like 3,000-4,000 a couple of times, but I've also hit for like upwards of 15, and that's really fun. I mean, it was really fun. It probably sucked on the other end. So I don't know. I mean, there's good and bad on this one. I guess the question becomes: do we want to keep this a PvP event, or are we making it into another PvE event, and with a little bit of PvP flavor to it?
Maybe removing that cap on Sunday or the last day, the way they had that super extended lock originally, would make the last day bloodier.
I think they should just put steps in. Like the first bank you get at 5, the second bank you get at 10, the third one's at 15, and then the next day it starts at 10 and goes to 15. And that way, I mean, maybe not those numbers, but I mean, like do it in a stepped way like that, like they did with the charges that you could use.
So you're saying still keep the checkpoints, but the auto bank amount gets further and further throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah, so like your first bank would be like 5, and then the next one would be more, and then the next one would be more, and then same with the banking. What I'd really like to see instead of 100% bank is like your first bank be like 100% or 90%. The next bank would be 80, 75 or something like that. And as you go down, as you keep on using more banks, it progressively gets worse. So there's always bounty available somewhere.
What about putting a timer on the bank? So the moment you hit bank, a 10-minute timer shows up. And at the end of the 10-minute timer, you bank. That would give you a window to do, to base somebody.
Well, yeah, but then that doesn't alleviate the problem of being worth 0 when you leave. You know what I mean? Like it's PvP. It's, you want people to be hitting bases. I mean, that's the whole point of it. So the only way to really encourage that is to make sure everyone's worth something. So if you have if you're waiting to bank and you've done, say you did your first one and it was like 10 grand and you're sitting at 9,000 and you want to bank, maybe the first one of that day is only 75%. You bank 75%. You still have that other floating out there. You can either use another bank, and this is where strategy comes back into it. You can either use another bank to lower how much exposure you have, or you can leave it and then you're open to other fleets or other people coming to hit you.
That would also leave some kitty on the table, because if you think about it, if let's say I only want to get 40,000 in bounty, you're correct in that I essentially could have been finished in the first day, and the way that it is now. Whereas if some gets left on the table, even though I've finished and am not planning on logging on, there's still bounty available there to be taken.
Correct. Because we really, I mean, in my mind, bounty is supposed to be a PvP event, and a lot of the stuff I'm seeing is really PvE kind of centric ideas and thoughts rather than something that's going to encourage base hitting. I mean, the top alliances, like if you look at like SDS7, PNLS, GIMPs, gangs, like they hit bases. When they're in, well, for the most part, we hit bases for our bounty most of the time. It's as opposed to farming all the NPC targets, because it's fun. That's part of that's what Battle Pirates originally garnered all the following for. was that type of interaction. And I would like to see something that encourages that to continue in bounty rather than turning into another boring ass grind fest of a second rate of a month.
Yeah, this bounty was a grind fest for sure.
Okay, I think we had one more on that slide. Oh, with the current imbalance, higher bases could not be hit, so mid-level, lower levels were constant targets. Not as prevalent as it probably would have been had there been higher participation, but because it's kind of weighted towards defense now, and I've seen this just during the week from alliance points. You get peaked if you've got 2 Howies, 2 blunderblusts, or 4 Howies.
Yeah, they just move on.
They leave, yeah,
Yep.
and they go find somebody that doesn't have that. And so I know in my world with some people that I was talking to, there were people that said that they got hit a lot more this time round, and they were folks that didn't have all of the turrets there. So we know.
See, I heard. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we know that Kix is saying that they're looking into it and addressing it, but I think that is something that's going to continue to play if the balance doesn't get fixed.
I had actually heard just the opposite. Like, people weren't getting hit at all because people would bank. I mean, there were some hits, but people would be able to bank. So, they wouldn't, people were like, oh, they're not worth anything. So what's easier, hitting somebody that just started getting bounty and they're worth like 300, 400, 500 points, or just going and hitting a crappy NPC that has no guard fleet in it? You know what I mean? I mean, everybody that I had talked to grinded the heck out of this thing.
I had a member.
Go ahead.
I had a member in my alliance with 2 missile cruisers that grinded out 120k in those 4 days.
Oh,
just on the your opponent basis.
Yeah. See, that's not a PvP event.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And you had mentioned on something, Cuttlefish, on the chests?
Oh yeah, they removed the chests from the last bounty. When we exceeded the daily number of 2,000 point locks, then we would get a chest on our way to the 10k lock. Those chests included Conqueror build tokens, and, well, that was pretty much it. There was some minor uranium in there, but those have also all been removed. And I would really like to see them come back.
Yeah, I'd like to see them come back, and I keep asking for this. I'd like to see the uranium switched for titanium, because there's nothing worse than grinding out and hitting like a 32k checkpoint and getting 25k in uranium.
Don't you feel special when that happens?
Yes, I use special words when that happens.
You know what I'd like to see is, just as an incentive, I mean, they could kind of combine, and I know some people are going to hate me for that idea, but because now the game auto banks for you at 10k exposed bounty, it would be nice if there was some sort of attractive prize if you hit that 10k auto bank. So there's like a risk reward element where if you leave your bounty exposed,
yep,
and you don't manually bank, you're gonna get, and could be something like, it's just a 4-day event, could be like a 1-day or a 2-day Conqueror build token every time you hit 10k. I don't know, something attractive.
Well, I like that.
Gonna leave you exposed, and now you gotta make a choice, right? Do you want to risk losing half your bounty, or do you want to,
Yep, you have to incentivize the players to leave bounty exposed, and that's why I would love to see the stepped percentages too, because the first one you'll get 90, but as you go on through the day, it would get less and less, so it's less efficient to bank it. So as a player, especially if you're wanting to get a lot of points, you're not going to hit that first bank, at 1,000 or 2,000. You're going to be leaving bounty exposed for people to come and hit you. So
yeah, you had some idea like that, right? The first bank gets 100%, the second gets 90, the third bank gets 80, something like that. I remember you said that. The numbers may be off, but I really like that idea too. Each bank during the 24-hour period becomes less efficient.
And if they do both, I mean, if they do a thing where you go, okay, you're going to get a cool prize at 10 grand, and not friggin' 2,000 uranium, all right? Like, I mean, like, seriously, like
that's what I said, a 24-hour Conqueror build token.
Something significant.
Yeah.
You do that, and you do the percentages. I mean, I think that would actually elicit a lot of people, at least at the mid and higher ends, to leave bounty exposed while they're playing. because it would be more worthwhile for them. And that then, you know, kind of engenders more base hitting and interaction with an actual PvP.
More base hitting, more PvPs means more funds to the players. There are rewards at the end, good for the players, and Kickside recoups that, making money in people coining repairs to do more PvP.
Yep.
Right? And people, I know people don't mind coining a fleet back when they're having real fun.
Yeah, no, if you're enjoying it, you'll coin it. If you get frustrated because of something dumb happened, then you just walk away. I mean, that's you know, you slow repair, walk away, and go and, you know, cut grass or something. I mean, no, I like that. That would be a really neat.
I think something to make me want to not bank as quickly and as often. Okay, prizes. This time, because if I've got my math right, because they removed the 2 extra halos and the 2 javelin 2s, we were looking at, I think, about 65,000 for the top prizes. That was the hull, the weapon, and the special. And I believe it would have been about 105,000 if not for the late changes.
I don't know. I didn't participate, so I didn't really even look at the price.
Are the other prizes all repeat? Like that explosive force, penetrative scope? Yes. Are they all repeats?
Believe they were.
Okay. Then you're right. It's 65K for that combo there. The impact cruiser, the D55V, and the ballistic something.
Yeah, some of them had new on them, and I'm like, well, I already own those, so they can't have been new because I didn't participate this time around, unless I totally messed it up.
Yeah.
But,
now, can I say something? I was really mad, like literally, it made me mad that people were redeeming the twin blades, because at this point in the game, they're so useless, right? I mean, from its own crop, from that crop when the twin blade came out and the King's Writ and now these guys, to me, the twin blade was already the weakest of the three, right? The Boulder Fist, the Boulder Fist and the King Writ were better than the Twin Blade. So the Twin Blade was already the weakest of the three of that pack. Then we had the Viscerators after that, and then we had T7. Literally, the gap from the Twin Blade to the Onslaught is less than 1 bounty drop. The free 800 bounty drop you get. And I saw people, I just redeemed 5 twin blades. Can someone post a build on the page? And I really wanted to hit that person on the head.
Go scrap them.
Like, I was nice and I didn't say that, but it made me mad because it's such a bad choice.
Well, the one thing that I did want to point out, and you're correct in maybe the whole, but going back to what we said before with lower players who may not necessarily have been able to get things in the past or in the raid, there are some really good specials and weapons that go with these hulls. So although the twin blade itself may not BA-wise by the aft razor foils were,
No, and that's true. But I mean, you're looking at 1,700 for the twin blade and then 2,400 for the onslaught, and that's the kit, right? I mean, if you're going to go with one or the other, it's that's only 500 points difference. Is that right? No,
700.
No, it's
700. Yes,
like I said, it's less than 1 free bounty drop of 800.
So why? Yeah, no, I agree with Ren. You just.
And here's the thing: you have everything you need to build a decent onslaught in FM. You have a nice rocket. You have the PvP armors. You have everything you need to build a decent onslaught in FM. And then it's like, think about it. How many of those replica bases, the low-level ones, you can hit with one single onslaught? You can do a bunch. If you pick the right ones, you can do a whole bunch. How many do you think you're going to hit with twin blades and survive?
An onslaught in the last bounty could hit almost any opponent bases under level 80. A missile cruiser built out could hit anything under level 100 cleanly.
Right, and a twin blade probably can't hit a fort.
Maybe a 60.
It's sad, man. I mean, and it's just overall common sense, right? I mean, you have 2 prizes. One of them is tier 6, the other is tier 7. Look at the numbers. Oh my God, this is so much better. It's only 700 points more. So sorry, I don't want to belabor that point. It frustrates me too much. Let's move on.
Moving on.
Okay, trying to find the controls again. Okay. All right, so that was kind of it for Bounty Review. There were some good things with the changes. There were some things that were not so good, but let's talk about Rampage reports. I've broken this into two parts. One of them being the Uranium based changes, and that's on the next slide. But a couple things that Chris touched on. First off, yay, they did the global release of the BP Companion app. With this app, this is available for both Android and for iPhones. You do have to be somebody that plays on Facebook to be able to use this, but you're able to download that in the game now. You can repair fleets. You can auto select targets, weekly targets, raid targets, things like that. And you also receive notifications. So if you're sitting down watching the idiot box and your fleet finishes, you don't have to go log in. You can just jump on your phone and start your next repair. So that's out for everybody now. There was, I think, 20 gold that they were giving out, but I think that runs out today. So if you were planning on doing that, you might want to download that now to receive the 20 free gold. They also, of course, recognized that the PvP was out of balance. We already talked about the changes for Bounty 10. There were some updates to the FM to allow players to catch up. We saw some additions in the lower tiers to help players. We also saw some new tokens, I believe, as well. And they also talked about a new upcoming Turn the Tide campaign, which is where players will be able to go ahead and earn the Proto Tide Seeker, which, of course, was a raid prize, I want to say 2 or 3 raids ago.
I don't remember. Yeah, it was 2. Was it 2? What did we get in the last raid? Oh, we got the Manicore flag. Yeah, so it was 2 raids ago, I think.
2 raids ago.
I don't know. I'm losing track.
Okay. And so moving on to the big thing that came up with Rampage reports, and this was the change from the Uranium bases over to the new ones. And I did get clarification today. It's not just the Uranium bases, it's the Uranium bases, there's like 5 in a sector, as well as the regular DRAC bases that are going to be removed. And they're going to be replaced with what he called these new subsector core resource bases. Yep. So it's not just the dubs. Apparently, it's all DRAC bases.
Wow, all of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Each of these new resource bases will have a satellite. Eventually there will be 4 of them. Each satellite will be a separate target that you can either run solo or you can run co-op with another player. In most instances, they will give out higher rewards than what you see on the map targets. I know there were some numbers that were thrown out. I think base parts, if you soloed the base parts one, it was like 500k in base parts, and I want to say 300k for co-op or something like that. So they are a higher reward. The initial launch will be just the siege and the skirmish versions, which will be base parts and uranium. And then later on this year, we'll start seeing the other ones come out. He mentioned the assault, the garrison, and then we're going to see the new center of the DRAC base, I guess, which is, I think that was tied to Sector Zone Red, I think it was. I think that's what we were going to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that's eventually going to, the center is going to eventually come to get unlocked. Now, the catch is where they're getting rid of all of these. I'm wondering if, because I'm thinking of the way the map's set up, I'm wondering if where the dubs are now, that's going to be the center, and then they're going to be the regular DRAC bases are going to be the corners.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious how they're going to set that up, because if they have something massive at every single spot, I mean, the map's already cluttered as hell. Yeah,
but then again, they've been pretty creative. Like the nav relays were, big targets inside, but itty bitty little, flags on the map themselves. But in order to hit these, to solo them, does not mean that you have to have these. But if you want to solo these are the fleets that you're looking for. We've of course already got the Proto Tide Seeker, which is in game and will be available in a new TLC. And then coming up for the June raid prize, it's the 14th of June, isn't it, for the raid?
Yes.
Yes, it
14th of June. We're going to have the new Proto Centurion. And then after that, sometime we're going to see the Proto Apollo, which I am really interested in seeing because I love the Apollos. And then there's going to be a garrison hull that is going to be determined. And something I just want to clarify, some people have had some misconceptions on this. First off, it was originally supposed to be released today. It has now been yesterday. Has now been pushed back to next week sometime. But these are not replacing the map targets. There are some people that were convinced that when these came out, everything from salvages to scourge targets, nav relays was all going away. They're not. This is a change to the uranium and the DRAC bases, but it is not affecting the map targets.
Yep. I am a little concerned about that garrison one, just because the garrison one is out of the cycle. The other thing that I am a little bit curious about is what happens when we have these come out as the next raid set. Are the Hydran and Buck going to be tuned for that, or are we tuning for the Proto Centurion, since that's going to clearly be more powerful if it can auto? Well, not auto, but do it solo.
Yep, that's a very good point, because right now we have at least clarity. You know that, the 60s, this cycle will be tuned for last year's haul.
Right.
But now you have a last year haul and the last year and a half. You know what I mean, right? Something between the new one and the old one. Yep. Which is a bit more powerful. So what?
Does anybody remember what tier the Proto Tideseeker is?
Isn't it something and a half?
Yeah, so maybe that's how they
6.5.
6.5. So the new hull would be 8 for the next round, and so they've done the restrictions where it has to be a tier 7 or higher. So maybe that's how they restrict.
Yeah, and I'm also curious to know what the garrison corner is going to pay, because Siege corner pays base parts, and the other titanium, and the other uranium. What are we going to get from the garrison corner?
I don't know. And my dock space doth runneth over right now, so.
And doesn't this also mean that we are
opposite of that? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Doesn't this also mean that we're staring down the barrel of 4 new flagships?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to try that. I mean, that would really be pushing it. And
didn't they say no to a Proto Tideseeker flag?
I'm trying to remember if they had mentioned it or not.
I think they did somewhere, because somebody asked, should I build 5 or do I wait for a flag? And I want to say I read somewhere that they said no, they weren't planning on releasing a flag anytime soon. I don't know. But on the...
yeah, the other thing, did you cover that last bottom right-hand corner? Because that one kind of worries me as well.
No, actually, if you want to take that whole side, you can.
So for the June raid, we have the Proto Centurion coming out, and it actually looks pretty badass. I like it. It's going to be for the DRAC bases. I guess I take it the new one is going to be the first corner is going to be for this or for the Tideseeker. I can't remember which one they said.
But this just said the initial launch would be the 2. He didn't indicate.
Okay, so 2 of them are coming out together. So this one's probably going to be the best, as effective as the Tideseekers, and that one in its own, which is a little bit disconcerting, because we just got the Hydra and the Buccaneer, and now we have this coming on their heels of that, raid set just finishing. So I don't know. I mean, it looks pretty good. The one thing that I do have a concern, though, is that it says it's going to be the most effective fleet for upcoming Siege TLCs. Now, that I have an issue with, because the TLCs are the venue in which we participate to get ahead in the game, right? Not just stay static, but get ahead a little bit. And if we are going to need the new hull to get TLCs for a raid set that we just finished, what happened to the hulls being valid for a year? Unless the new TLCs are co-op, I have an issue. I have a huge issue with that.
Yeah, I don't want to see... Well, they changed it, because if you remember, originally you needed Manticores built to get the Scorpion equipment for the skill Manticore, and then they had to go and make a whole bunch of changes. And then when they did that, they kind of bought the Skyfires doing the TLC. So yes, I'd like to see the older fleets, because if we've now got the new dubs, what do I use my Hydras and my Buckies for?
Yep. I mean, I would like to start seeing some consistency coming out of Kixeye, and not in the way that we're getting consistent issues lately.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a concern. So
Yeah.
that's all the information that we have with respects to those new targets. Other than they did say next week, right? It was 8/20,
Yeah,
8/23. So
next week is when they're slated to switch over, and I mean, I'm hoping, because from my understanding, if you have two people that can drive really well, you can co-op these for a decent payout and not, destroyed fleets. Now, if you go in and absolutely bork it, you're going to come out dead. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like to see. I mean, I take it we're going to see the corner for the Centurion before we see the Centurion. So that might give us an indication of just how powerful the Centurion is going to be. So we can maybe gauge it that way.
Now, I'd like to bring a point up. They definitely 100% clearly ran out of ideas for names, right? All the turrets now are something 2. All the ships are Proto something we already released before.
I can give them names all day long. I don't know why they're doing this. I really don't.
Yeah, but their names has to be like PG, George. That disqualifies.
I can do PG. I can try anyway.
Yeah, although even the concept of PG is like debatable. I was watching a TV series the other day, rated PG, and it starts with the camera cutting for 3 different scenes of 3 different couples having sex.
My kind of PG.
I'm like, yeah, okay, that's PG.
I mean, I remember growing up, you
PG
couldn't.
stands for pretty good, or
I guess, right?
I mean, I remember growing up, you couldn't say like anything, and like movies were like totally like they under the microscope and stuff, and now I'm seeing some of the movies coming out, and I'm like, man, when I was a kid, this would be R-rated easily.
Yeah,
and it's PG or PG-13. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's changed. It has definitely changed.
Yeah, I think it's now just like a suggestion, right? And guys go like, well, your 14-year-old kid certainly already checked some websites, that he shouldn't. So whatever.
Guidelines, is that like the speed limit guideline?
Exactly,
the guideline for Alabama, the state of Alabama.
Oh, because I used to drive up and down the entire East Coast, and it's funny because like down in the southern areas and stuff, it would be like 65 or 70, and they would be within like 10, 15 miles an hour of it, right? You hit like Connecticut, and it goes like the posted speed limit 65, and you're in the slow lane doing 90, getting passed by everybody, and I'm like, what the hell? It's interesting going through different states. It's fun.
Yeah, here in Ontario, there's like there all the wide highways. They're called 400 something. There's the 400, 401, 403, and 10 and whatnot, right? And the cops are pretty hard ass in enforcing the speed limit if they're there. But there's one of the roads, the 407. It's the only one that has tolls, and it's very expensive tolls. On that one, you can go 140, 150. Nobody gives a damn. I think it's because you pay toll. Like the cops really don't give a damn. They're only going to stop you if you're like right up someone's ass, like driving dangerously. But if you're speeding and you have a good distance to the other car, they don't give a damn. So, guys, let's go back to the topic here. I think
we got off topic talking about my PG rating. All right.
Cuddle, you had something?
Well, two things. Do we know if Rampage is doing a report tomorrow?
I believe he should be, yeah.
I have no idea, yeah.
Excellent.
Now, I feel bad for him, man, because some people even started calling it garbage reports, and I said it's nothing against Rampage. It's just because the content of his reports are really lacking. I mean, the powers that be a Kickstarter could give the guys some more juice, some good information, some stuff that we really want to know. Like bring a developer, bring a designer, have an intelligent Q&A, explain some mechanic in the game, something people really care about instead of just this, fluffy marketing.
Yeah, I actually sent them a message because when, oh, holy crap. I'm forgetting his name now. Holy crap. Redbeard used to be our CM. Swag. So when Swag came back for a little
the
bit,
purple
right?
beard.
Yeah, when he came back for a little bit, he was doing something similar and had a developer on. I don't know if he was doing it every week or once a month or something like that, but he'd have a developer on. And I was like, man, why don't you do that? Because that would be kind of neat, right? Like drag somebody in there and talk with with you, right? And that way we can get maybe some at least hints. If they can't come right out and say anything, they can at least kind of hint, and we'll get some sort of little bit of heads up that way. I don't know if they're willing to do that, above him. But I know he's definitely open to suggestions about all sorts of stuff. I mean, he's very
because the way it is, I mean, the guy is so limited in what he says that there's really no point in asking people to post their questions, because I don't think they answer any of them. That really would help people understand the game better.
Yeah.
Okay, Cuddle?
So everybody knows that right after the raid, the 103 base part targets are all going to be gone. And we're going to be converting to some new ones, which we saw for a brief moment, but were removed. So if your base has stuff to upgrade still in it, please spend your time, get the base parts while they're relatively easy, and max out your turrets, your portals. Though your portals, you actually do need some real time for it, but get your base upgraded as quickly as possible before base parts become much, much more difficult to get a hold of.
Yep, that's a really good point. Okay, we do have a couple
Are they
more
really
slides.
going away?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they are. Map charges are changing. We have a bonus extra, not normally planned VXP weekend, or I guess 24 hours coming up this weekend. Starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. and runs until Saturday at 9 a.m. And it's just the 105 target that's at the towers. Obviously, this is similar to the ones that we see in the assault cycle. So can't retreat from them. If you do kill it, you do go ahead and get the 3 defender tokens. But a good place, if you have nothing to rank, a good place for you to test out tweaks for your raid fleets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Having all the members of my alliance throw their raid fleets in, and then we're going to look at the repair time on all of them and see what we can tweak.
Why do you do that?
And just to see what the difference is with people's builds.
He just broke rank. I mean, George went yep, I went to yep, and he had to give like a 10-sentence long answer. Sorry, never mind. I'm kidding.
Okay, we do have some repeat TLCs. First off, we've got Hunter Games. This one hasn't changed very much. Uses assault fleets, which is, of course, the Phoenix and the Skyfire. It gives you the Hunter, the Apex Hunter, as well as the special and weapons and the charged armor that goes with it. Then we've also got the Skyfire Elite TLC, which gives you tokens as well as the hulls for those that are still trying to finish those off for the raid. So if you did use Skyfires, or if you're only using a couple of mantis for the raid, there were some videos that were put out there. I think Luke and Ahmed put a couple out there where they were using a combo of some Skyfires as well as 1 or 2 mantis. So that's worth taking a look at if you need some tokens for a refit.
Yeah, the one before, the Hunter games, if you retrofitted your Phoenixes or Skyfires, you're just going to run through them like with whipped cream. It's just going to be easy.
Yep. I'm glad to hear that.
Whipped cream.
And then we've got the Hidden Depths TLC.
It lubricates.
It lubricates. I mean, so does blood. I mean, you don't see me saying bloody.
All right. Hidden Depths TLC. This one you're required to have the PBX payload, which you can get from Hunter Games in order to be able to do skirmish fleets using the Hunter or the Fangtooth. I know there are a lot of people out there that are, still trying to finish their fleets, but for those of you that have finished this, I know I've got oodles of Fangtooth tokens. There are 3 one-day skirmish class tokens that are in this. So, you may be thinking, oh, I don't need any more Fangtooth tokens. Those 3 one-day skirmish class tokens will work on any skirmish hull.
Not to brag about it, but I've done this every time it came out, and I already have 21 generic skirmish tokens saved.
Yep. I have a fair few as well. So yeah, worth it if nothing else to do for that one as well.
Now, Rose, sorry, let me pause you a little bit. Somebody was saying, "Oh, I wonder on chat. I wonder how Manticores will do in the Hunter games." My answer to that is they will suck because the little drones are there and they stun the ships. And most people are building Manticores without Agility System 4. Once the Manticores get stunned, and they get stunned time after time after time after time until they die.
Yep, you're boned.
Oh, so maybe take the Skyfires in, run around the outside, kill the
Those
ships.
Skyfires or Phoenixes, yeah, and do not use Manticores on that TLC unless you have Agility System 4, which you shouldn't because it's not needed for the actual current raid cycle.
Yeah, or do like what Ru just said, was take the Skyfires in, kill all the
the tiny guys.
ships, yeah, and then go back in with the Manticores, and that would cut through it like a hot knife through butter.
And whipped cream.
So that's hidden depths. Bug fixes and balance changes. So we've got 2 this week. They fixed an issue where bounty defenders were not getting a bubble in certain situations.
You know the funny thing about that fix? We won't know if they're lying until next bounty. I mean, that could be a lie.
Well,
That's nice.
And then they fixed an issue with fleet repair tokens not working for Conquerors during bounty. There are 2 other things that I wanted to bring up. One, most people are aware of. One, they may not be. There are some issues with redemptions in the FM. They were supposed to be corrected with the update yesterday. We were given that information by Kix that looks like that fix did not work. So those are still in there, but they are looking at it. And then today,
that first one, by the way, if there's a problem, send a message to Ford. It's all his fault. Just saying.
Yep.
PM Ford. That's right.
And speaking of Ford did some testing today based on some posts that were put on there. It looks like bases.
And he's not insane. He got certified. He's not insane.
Yeah, bases seem to be starting to instantly repair. There was some discussion where people thought it was because, well, this person was on the app, so it showed them as being logged in. But there was some testing that was done today, so it looks like there might be an issue with bases starting to automatically repair instead of if that person is offline when they're being hit.
So even if they're not on the app?
Yes.
So you can't prep someone because their base is going to start repairing on its own.
Yeah.
Well, you still prep, but it's not a case of where if they get hit and then you wait till you log on. So
yeah. Anton in chat actually said that you can use the mantis in everything but prize pack 6 and above. So
except PT9, there's no PP9. I think he means encounter 9. What does it mean by that?
It says prize pack 6 and above.
And above. Okay. Thanks, Anton.
So probably encounter 6 and above.
Encounter 6 probably he means, yeah. Okay.
That was all I had. Did anybody else have anything?
How was your drive through Tennessee?
Wet. But I made up for it everywhere else. But well, big thank you for those that joined me on the panel. Appreciate it, and thank you to those that joined us in chat and that stuck with us, even though we did go a little off topic. Our next show will, of course, be Saturday afternoon, which is our open mic, where we encourage players. And I guess that's 2 days from now, where we encourage players to come in and help share their views and thoughts of what they think that's going on. And with that, I guess that's it for us tonight. And thank you all for coming.
Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy the VXP bonus.
Yes.
Have some fun.
Tenham todos uma boa noite.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.